Welcome back, history seekers. Imagine standing on the windswept shores of the Solent, the strait just north of the Isle of Wight, on a summer morning in 1545. The sun glints off the English Tudor Navy's pride, a magnificent carrack, the Mary Rose, its sails billowing, cannons gleaming, and crew bustling with the nervous energy of men about to face the French fleet. This was no ordinary ship. She had been the cutting edge of naval warfare, armed with heavy guns capable of firing through newly invented gun ports, a ship rebuilt and reinforced over decades of intermittent war. She symbolized England's growing maritime power, yet beneath her wooden deck, secrets waited, secrets that would remain hidden for centuries beneath the cold, unforgiving waters. The Mary Rose had launched in 1511, serving King Henry VIII with unyielding loyalty in campaigns against France, Scotland, and Brittany. 34 years of combat had sculpted her into a vessel of both terror and elegance. She had survived storms, battles, and the evolution of naval strategy. By 1536, she had been substantially rebuilt, emerging more formidable, capable of firing a broadside, long before line-of-battle tactics would dominate the seas. Yet on the 19th of July, 1545, something went catastrophically wrong. She led the English attack against the galleys of a French invasion fleet, only to vanish beneath the waves in an instant, swallowed by the Solent like a creature dragged to the ocean's abyss. For centuries, the Mary Rose slept in silence, a ghostly skeleton buried under layers of mud and silt, carrying the remains of men, weapons, and untold stories. Questions haunted scholars and sailors alike. How could such a proud, powerful ship simply disappear? What did the lives of her crew reveal about Tudor England, its warfare, its fears, and its ambition? The wreck became more than a mystery. It became a time capsule, holding the echoes of a world long vanished. It wasn't until 1971 that modern eyes rediscovered her resting place, and in 1982, after one of the most complex and costly maritime salvage operations in history, the Mary Rose was brought back from the depths. Thousands of artifacts emerged, cannons, instruments, tools, even personal items belonging to the crew, offering a haunting, tangible link to men who had not returned from battle. Each object whispered secrets of a bygone era, illuminating life aboard a Tudor warship in ways books could never fully capture. Before we continue with the story and unspeakable secrets, I want to ask something important. This channel is not for everyone. Only the bravest souls who dare to confirm the darkest chapters of English history. If you made it this far, you are not like most people. You understand some truths are too horrifying to ignore, no matter how much they disturb us. So hit that subscribe button and join our community of true mystery seekers. And tell me in the comments, what state are you listening from? Are you brave enough to hear a story like this from your own backyard? Next, we will dive into the final moments before the Mary Rose's fateful sinking, where panic, strategy, and human error collided with deadly consequences. July 19, 1545, began like any other summer day in southern England, but for the crew of the Mary Rose, it would become a day of legend and of horror. The air was thick with the smell of salt and tar as the ship glided across the Solent, its deck crowded with sailors, gunners, and officers preparing for battle. Flags flapped violently in the wind, cannon ports were pried open, and the thrum of tension coursed through every man aboard. At the helm stood the ship's captain, a man whose life had been devoted to navigating the unpredictable waters of both politics and the English Channel. Yet, even his experience could not predict what awaited them. The Mary Rose was tasked with leading the English assault against the French invasion galleys, a fleet determined to breach England's southern defences. Her cannons, cutting edge for the era, were lined along both sides, ready to unleash a deadly broadside. Her crew, many pressed into service from across England, moved with practiced precision, but nerves ran high. There was no turning back. In the distance, the French ships loomed, their oars slicing through the water, their banners snapping in the wind. A clash of titans was inevitable, and the Mary Rose would be at the forefront. But the Solent, deceptively calm, held its own secrets. Strong currents and shallow sandbanks made navigation treacherous even for the most seasoned sailors. Historians still debate whether a sudden gust, a miscalculated maneuver, or a flaw in her recent reconstruction led to disaster. Witnesses from nearby English vessels reported the Mary Rose suddenly heeling sharply to starboard. Shouts of alarm filled the air as men scrambled to right the ship. Cannons toppled, weapons slid across the deck, and the sound of splintering wood mingled with the terrified cries of sailors. Within moments, she began to sink. The water surged over her deck with relentless force. Men were thrown into the icy Solent, their screams swallowed by the waves. Some clung to rigging, others to floating debris, but the majority vanished beneath the waters. No one could have imagined that a ship that had survived decades of war and weather would be undone in minutes. By nightfall, the Mary Rose had disappeared into the depths, leaving nothing but questions and grief in her wake. The loss was not only of men, but of knowledge. The Mary Rose had been one of the earliest purpose-built sailing warships, pioneering new artillery arrangements and naval tactics. Her sinking was a devastating blow to England's naval pride. For centuries, only fragments of her story survived. Official accounts, eyewitness testimonies, and whispered rumors of cowardice, misfortune, or mechanical failure. Every theory painted a partial picture, yet none could fully capture the tragedy as it unfolded that July day. Next, we will uncover the centuries-long mystery of her resting place, buried under mud and silt, where time itself conspired to preserve her secrets for the modern world. For more than 4 centuries, the Mary Rose lay silent beneath the murky waters of the Solent, hidden from sight yet perfectly preserved by the mud and silt that had claimed her. Imagine a world above, changing with kings and empires, while below, her timbers, cannons, and the remains of her crew rested in frozen time. The sea became both her grave and her shield, hiding secrets that would eventually rewrite what we know of Tudor England. Historians speculated endlessly about her sinking. Some claimed human error, others blamed a sudden gust of wind. A few suggested that the ship's modifications in 1536 had made her unstable, a deadly flaw lurking in her hull. Yet nothing could explain the complete disappearance of such a powerful vessel, one that had dominated the English Navy for over 3 decades. The truth, however, was locked in the cold, dark embrace of the Solent, waiting for hands brave enough to uncover it. Below the waves, time worked differently. The hull, compressed under centuries of water and silt, preserved its shape and structure. Cannons remained in their positions, swords rested against gun ports, and personal effects lay where they had been dropped in panic. Every object became a frozen moment, a glimpse into the life and sudden death of men who had once moved with purpose, unaware of their impending doom. The Solent became a tomb, and yet a time capsule, holding the story of England's naval ambition, its innovation, and its tragic vulnerability. Interest in the Mary Rose never waned. Local legends whispered of ghostly sightings, of strange echoes in the water where she sank, fueling imagination and scholarly intrigue alike. By the 20th century, advances in archaeology and technology made it possible to locate the long-lost ship. In 1971, the wreck was finally discovered, a skeletal outline emerging from the seabed, silent yet speaking volumes. For the first time in centuries, the Mary Rose's story could be told not through fragmented reports, but through tangible evidence: wood, iron, and the fragile remnants of human lives preserved beneath layers of sediment. The discovery ignited a wave of excitement and painstaking research. Marine archaeologists realized that this was not merely a shipwreck. It was one of the most significant maritime finds in history. The preservation of artifacts provided unprecedented insight into Tudor naval warfare, shipbuilding, and the daily lives of sailors. Every nail, every musket, even a discarded shoe told a story, whispering the fears, hopes, and courage of men long gone. Next, we will explore the daring and complex operation that brought the Mary Rose back to the surface, an engineering marvel that allowed history to resurface in full, haunting clarity. For centuries, the Mary Rose lay hidden beneath the Solent, her story trapped in the darkness. But in 1971, the impossible happened. Modern technology revealed the outline of her hull, buried in mud, yet astonishingly intact. What followed was a decades-long quest, a combination of relentless determination, cutting-edge engineering, and sheer audacity to bring one of history's most iconic warships back to the light. The world had never attempted anything like it. The Mary Rose Trust, a dedicated team of archaeologists, engineers, and historians, faced a staggering challenge. Raising a centuries-old wooden ship, preserved in silt but fragile beyond belief, was a task that required precision down to the millimeter. Any miscalculation could crush the hull, destroy priceless artifacts, or erase centuries of history in a single tragic moment. This operation would rival, in complexity and cost, even the famed raising of the Swedish warship Vasa in 1961, and every step carried the tension of walking a tightrope over disaster. Preparation alone took years. Divers meticulously excavated the surrounding silt, uncovering thousands of artifacts that had remained undisturbed for 437 years. Cannons, weapons, tools, and personal belongings, each recovered item revealed a glimpse into Tudor life at sea. As the excavation progressed, the Mary Rose slowly emerged from obscurity, her hull revealing the marks of battle, the scars of age, and the silent tragedy of those who had perished aboard. Then came the most perilous moment. Lifting her from the seabed, engineers designed a complex cradle system to support the fragile structure, carefully maneuvering it through the murky waters. On 11th of October 1982, after years of preparation, the world watched as the Mary Rose, silent for centuries, rose from the depths. Cheers erupted, but the tension was far from over. Any error could have shattered the fragile timbers. Yet against all odds, the hull emerged intact, a ghostly silhouette of England's Tudor naval power, bringing with her not just a ship, but the echoes of a long-lost world. The recovery of the Mary Rose transformed the study of maritime archaeology. Here was a ship that had fought wars, survived storms, and then died abruptly, only to return centuries later as a perfectly preserved window into Tudor England. Every artifact and every plank held secrets waiting to be uncovered: the lives of the crew, the brutal realities of naval warfare, and the technological advances that made the ship both formidable and tragically vulnerable. Next, we will examine the artifacts recovered from the Mary Rose, from weapons and tools to intimate personal items, each revealing chilling details about the men who sailed and died aboard her. The Mary Rose's hull had risen from the Solent, but the real stories lay in the thousands of artifacts painstakingly recovered from her silt-covered grave. Each object, from the smallest button to the largest cannon, spoke of the lives, struggles, and final moments of her crew. Walking among these relics is like stepping back into 1545, when men lived, fought, and died aboard England's finest warship. Weapons dominated many of the finds. Cannons, muskets, crossbows, and handheld swords told a story of preparation and combat, of a navy adapting to new technologies. Some weapons bore scorch marks from cannon fire, hinting at battles that had raged before her final voyage. But alongside these instruments of war were deeply personal items: shoes, combs, wooden spoons, musical instruments, and even fragments of clothing. These artifacts revealed a human side to a story often defined by strategy and bloodshed. Men who might have been considered faceless sailors centuries ago suddenly had names, habits, and fears reconstructed from what they left behind. One of the most haunting discoveries was the human remains. Nearly 200 men were recovered, many still in positions suggesting the suddenness of the ship's sinking. Faces frozen in terror, hands clutching weapons, or leaning over friends in instinctive acts of desperation, these remains told a story of panic, courage, and sheer helplessness. Forensic analysis revealed details about diet, disease, and even previous injuries, painting an intimate portrait of life aboard the Mary Rose. These were not just soldiers. They were fathers, sons, and craftsmen, each with dreams cut short by the sea. Equally revealing were the objects linked to everyday life: gaming dice, leather pouches, cooking utensils, and even musical instruments. These small, ordinary items whispered stories of camaraderie, boredom, superstition, and hope. They reminded historians that life at sea was not just about warfare. It was about survival in the most hostile of environments, punctuated by moments of human joy and creativity. The artifacts of the Mary Rose transformed our understanding of Tudor England. They illustrated the rapid evolution of naval technology, the complexity of shipboard life, and the human cost of military ambition. Every object was a fragment of a larger story, a silent witness to the terror of sinking, the chaos of battle, and the courage of men confronting their mortality. Next, we will explore the reconstruction and preservation efforts that allowed the Mary Rose to become a museum, a haunting, tangible portal to the Tudor era where visitors can walk among history itself. Once the Mary Rose had been lifted from the depths, the challenges were far from over. Centuries beneath the Solent had left her fragile, her wooden timbers waterlogged and prone to collapse if not treated with extreme care. What emerged from the sea was not merely a ship. It was a decayed skeleton of a once mighty warship, carrying with it the silent echoes of those who had perished aboard. The task ahead would be monumental: to preserve her, to allow the world to see, touch, and understand history frozen in time. Conservation experts employed a methodical process that would take years. Polyethylene glycol, a waxy chemical, was sprayed onto the wood to replace water molecules and stabilize the timbers, preventing them from shrinking or cracking as they dried. Climate-controlled hangars ensured that humidity and temperature were carefully regulated, slowing the inevitable decay. Every plank, nail, and rope fragment became an object of scientific scrutiny, each one crucial to reconstructing the ship's structure and telling its story accurately. In 1984, the Mary Rose found a permanent home at the Portsmouth Historic Dockyard. Visitors could walk alongside her timbers, see the spaces where men lived and fought, and feel the weight of history pressing from every angle. Nearby, the Mary Rose Museum opened, designed specifically to house the thousands of artifacts recovered from the wreck. Weapons, tools, personal effects, and even fragments of musical instruments filled display cases, each item a window into Tudor naval life. Walking through the museum is akin to stepping onto the deck of the Mary Rose herself, where every corner whispers the stories of the men who once called her home. The ship and her artifacts became more than exhibits. They became storytellers. By examining the placement of cannons, the design of the living quarters, or the wear on shoes and utensils, historians could reconstruct daily routines, battle preparations, and even moments of leisure. The Mary Rose became a tangible link to a past often obscured by time, giving voice to a crew long silenced by tragedy. Beyond the scientific marvel of preservation, the Mary Rose captured imaginations worldwide. She became a symbol of courage, ambition, and human vulnerability, a stark reminder of how a single event could annihilate even the most formidable of creations. Visitors left the museum haunted not by ghost stories, but by the reality of the lives lost, the innovation achieved, and the fragility of human endeavor against the vast, unforgiving sea. Next, we will uncover the technological innovations aboard the Mary Rose, her guns, gun ports, and tactics that made her a deadly instrument of Tudor naval power, yet may have contributed to her dramatic downfall. The Mary Rose was more than a ship. She was a floating fortress, a testament to the ingenuity and ambition of Tudor England. By the standards of her time, she was revolutionary. She carried heavy guns along her sides, capable of firing through newly invented gun ports, allowing her to unleash devastating broadsides against enemy vessels. This was an era before line-of-battle tactics, yet the Mary Rose represented a leap forward in naval warfare, marrying firepower, size, and speed in a deadly combination. The 1536 reconstruction had transformed her into a near-unstoppable force. Decks were strengthened to accommodate heavier guns, and gun ports were installed to maximize the effectiveness of her artillery. Yet every innovation carried risk. The very modifications that made her so powerful may have contributed to her instability, a dangerous combination of weight distribution, design flaws, and the unpredictable forces of wind and sea. On the 19th of July, 1545, the Mary Rose would demonstrate both the brilliance and the peril of cutting-edge naval engineering. Life aboard the Mary Rose was intense. The crew of nearly 400 men worked in tight, crowded conditions, preparing for battle with almost ritualistic precision. Cannons were loaded, gunpowder stored carefully, ropes coiled and secured, while gunners calculated angles and trajectories for maximum impact. The clamor of sailors, the clanking of armor, and the shouted orders created a symphony of controlled chaos. It was a delicate balance. One misstep could ignite disaster. Historical and archaeological evidence suggests that the Mary Rose's final moments were a brutal illustration of that balance tipping. Some theories point to a gust of wind catching her sails as she fired a broadside, causing her to heel sharply. Others suggest that improperly loaded guns or a sudden shift in ballast destabilized her. Whatever the cause, the combination of human action and technological power became lethal. The ship that had been the pride of the Tudor Navy transformed into a coffin in minutes, sending men and metal plunging beneath the waves. Her innovations were not in vain. The Mary Rose's design influenced generations of warships, her broadside concept a precursor to future naval tactics. Yet her story is a haunting reminder that progress comes with cost, that even the most formidable creations are vulnerable to unforeseen consequences. Every cannon, gun port, and structural adjustment aboard the Mary Rose tells a story of ambition, ingenuity, and tragedy intertwined. Next, we will delve deeper into the human side of the Mary Rose, the crew's daily life, their fears, and the moments of camaraderie and desperation that defined those who lived and died aboard this ill-fated warship. The Mary Rose was not just timber and iron. She was a home, a battlefield, and a prison for nearly 400 men. The artifacts recovered from her wreck reveal intimate glimpses into their lives, illuminating the humanity behind the uniforms and weaponry. Each man aboard had a story, now frozen in the mud of the Solent, waiting centuries to be told. Bones, carefully examined by forensic archaeologists, revealed much about the crew's daily existence. Many were young, barely more than teenagers pressed into service. Injuries and healed wounds told tales of previous battles, accidents aboard ships, and the harsh realities of Tudor life. Dental analysis suggested diets largely dependent on ship's biscuits and salted meat, yet evidence of fish, grains, and imported spices hinted at brief moments of comfort. Clothing fragments, shoes, and combs painted a picture of men striving for dignity amidst the chaos of naval service. Some artifacts hint at moments of levity. Gaming dice, musical instruments, and personal tokens were discovered, suggesting that sailors sought respite from the tension of life at sea. Yet the wreck also captured the final terror of a sudden catastrophe. The positioning of bodies and personal items indicated panic, weapons still in hand, a man's arm outstretched as if reaching for a friend, shoes and belts scattered across the deck. These were ordinary men thrust into extraordinary circumstances, their final moments frozen in a silent scream that would only be heard centuries later. The diversity of the crew was striking. Men came from different regions of England, some experienced sailors, others pressed into service against their will. Archaeological evidence suggests that even a few boys served aboard, performing crucial but perilous tasks. Their lives, abruptly ended, offer an unparalleled window into social hierarchy, discipline, and survival aboard a Tudor warship. The Mary Rose, in sinking, became both a grave and a time capsule, preserving the human cost of England's naval ambition. Through these discoveries, the Mary Rose transforms from a story of technology and warfare into a deeply personal tale. Each artifact and skeletal remain is a testament to courage, fear, and endurance. The ship's legacy is not just in its design or the grandeur of its guns, but in the lives of the men who lived, fought, and died within her hull. Men whose voices, silenced by the sea, now echo across centuries. Next, we will investigate the mysterious circumstances behind her sinking, exploring the theories, debates, and chilling possibilities that have haunted historians for generations. Even centuries after the Mary Rose sank, her final moments remain shrouded in mystery. Scholars, naval historians, and engineers have pored over every detail: the ship's design, the eyewitness accounts, and the recovered artifacts. Yet no single theory fully explains how a ship so powerful, so meticulously rebuilt, could founder so suddenly in calm waters. The truth remains elusive, a dark puzzle preserved beneath the Solent for 437 years. Several theories have dominated historical debate. Some suggest a sudden gust of wind caught the ship as she fired a broadside, causing her to heel sharply and take on water. Others argue that overloading during battle, combined with unstable gun placement after her 1536 reconstruction, made her dangerously top-heavy. A few even propose human error, crew unfamiliar with the ship's adjustments, miscommunication in the chaos of battle, or inexperienced hands fumbling with ropes and sails. Each scenario paints a chilling picture. a momentary lapse transforming a proud warship into a watery grave. Archaeological evidence adds both clarity and complexity. The positions of the skeletons indicate sudden panic, yet suggest some men tried to fight the water, grasping for weapons or rigging. Cannons remained in place, but some had toppled, hinting at the violent heeling of the ship. Artifacts scattered across the deck reveal a frantic scramble for survival. Even after centuries, the wreck tells a story of instantaneous disaster, a world frozen in the terrifying instant when triumph turned to catastrophe. Theories alone, however, cannot capture the human dimension. Imagine the terror. Men who had trained for years, who had survived storms and skirmishes, suddenly overwhelmed by a force beyond control. Screams lost to the sea, comrades dragged under, and the heavy hull closing like a coffin over nearly 400 souls. This is not legend. It is history, etched into wood, iron, and bone, speaking across the centuries in a language of horror and awe. The sinking of the Mary Rose remains a cautionary tale about ambition and innovation. Even the most advanced designs can harbor fatal flaws. Even the bravest crew can be undone by circumstance. And even history itself, which often sanitizes tragedy, is powerless to erase the terror of those final, fleeting moments. The Solent holds these secrets still, whispering them only to those willing to listen closely, beneath the roar of the waves and the cries of the past. Next, we will conclude our journey, exploring how the Mary Rose lives on today, not just as a ship in a museum, but as a lasting testament to courage, human fragility, and the haunting power of history preserved in wood and water. The Mary Rose no longer rests beneath the Solent, yet she continues to haunt the imagination of all who encounter her. From her dramatic rise from the seabed to her careful preservation in Portsmouth, she has become more than a shipwreck. She is a bridge to the past, a tangible reminder of human ambition, courage, and vulnerability. Every plank, every cannon, every artifact tells a story that transcends time, bringing history alive in a way no book ever could. Visitors to the Mary Rose Museum walk alongside her hull, peering into spaces where men once lived, fought, and died. Weapons, tools, musical instruments, and personal belongings line the display cases, offering an intimate glimpse into life aboard a Tudor warship. The collection preserves both the extraordinary and the mundane, moments of fear, moments of laughter, and the quiet determination of men navigating a world defined by danger. Each artifact is a whisper from the past, carrying the weight of lives abruptly ended, yet vividly remembered. The ship's legacy extends beyond the museum walls. Scholars continue to study her, uncovering new insights into Tudor naval architecture, military innovation, and social history. The Mary Rose has become a symbol of England's maritime heritage, a benchmark in maritime archaeology, and a cautionary tale about the fragility of even the mightiest creations. Her story reminds us that progress is always intertwined with risk, and that human lives, even when lost, leave echoes that endure through time. Yet perhaps the most powerful legacy of the Mary Rose is the humanity preserved within her timbers. The skeletons, artifacts, and deck layouts reveal men who were ordinary in many ways, yet extraordinary in their courage, resilience, and determination. They were fathers, sons, craftsmen, and soldiers who faced the unknown with bravery, only to be claimed by the sea. Their voices, silenced in 1545, now speak through careful conservation, scholarly study, and the awe of countless visitors who gaze upon the hull today. The Mary Rose reminds us that history is not only a series of dates and battles, it is a story of people who fought, suffered, and lived within the limits of their time. She teaches us to listen to the whispers of the past, to respect the sacrifices of those who came before, and to understand that the sea, ever indifferent, holds secrets we may never fully know. As you leave the museum or reflect on her story, remember this. The Mary Rose is not just a ship. She is a vessel of memory, courage, and haunting beauty. She teaches us that even in tragedy, history survives, speaking to those brave enough to hear. The end, or perhaps just the beginning of understanding the depths of Tudor England's mysteries.